And going back to our top story now, Israel killing Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, and we have with us Ambassador S.R. Thayal, former senior Indian diplomat. Welcome, sir, to the program. How far will Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar's killing affect the morale and the will to fight of Hamas?
It will very fatally almost affect the will of fight of Hamas. See, after the 7th of October last year's terrorist attacks by Hamas on Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu and Israel had set some goals. That, of course, hostages at the time there were more than 250, and that they should be released. Then complete destruction of Hamas as a terrorist organization. And third goal was that Hezbollah in Lebanon should be degraded. And of course, fourth objective, their long-term objective from a long time has been that Iran's nuclear capacity should be destroyed or should be restricted. Now, the first day, of course, killed Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, who was the political leader of Hamas, and he was in Qatar and here and there, not in Gaza. He was killed in Iran, and the entire fighting force of Hamas that was controlled by Yahya Sinwar. And now that he has also been killed, that means the top leadership of Hamas is now been assassinated. And many of the second rank commanders, because after all, there have been almost 42,000 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli bombardment and land action, tanks, bombardments, air attacks in Gaza and in West Bank. So it is natural that that a large number of Hamas fighters would also have been killed in these among these 40,000 odd people. That and also Israel has almost sealed the border of Gaza towards Egypt, because a lot of supplies used to come from Egypt through tunnels into Gaza. All those tunnels have been destroyed, and people have been moved back in Gaza from the Gaza Egyptian border. So there is no way that Hamas can get fresh supplies of ammunition or mortar making equipment or missile making equipment from Iran. So one can safely say that the fighting capacity of Hamas in Gaza has been severely degraded. Of course, there will be individual fighters with some weapons and some ammunition and some arsenal, so they can mount some resistance to Israeli forces which are in Gaza, but they will not be able to have a standing battle with the Israeli forces in the Gaza Strip for some time to come.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that there could be an end to the conflict in Gaza if Hamas laid down arms and returned all hostages. But is that at all a likely possibility?
Now, there are some reports that within Gaza itself, the voices are rising against Hamas because the Hamas's actions have brought so much of death and destruction to the helpless people of Gaza that they just have had enough and they want to come to some kind of a compromise with Israel. And all the efforts, international efforts, have been in that direction. And that hostages should be released and there should be a ceasefire. But Israel was not agreeing to a ceasefire except for a very short ceasefire of 2 or 3 weeks. But now, if Israel's assessment could be that Hamas has been sufficiently degraded, then there is a possibility that there could be some kind of a ceasefire. But whether Hamas as an organization will declare that they surrender, that would mean not only the ammunition or arms which they have, but whoever are their fighters still they should also surrender, but there can be an amnesty for them. So there is a possibility of some kind of a ceasefire agreement. But Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday in his statement said that yes, Yahya Sinwar has been killed, but this is not yet the end of the war. And it is not clear what more does he want.
And several world leaders have also said that Yahya Sinwar's killing offers an opportunity to end the Gaza conflict. What is their reasoning? Instead, could Sinwar's killing have the opposite effect and stiffen the resolve of Hamas and its supporters and lead to a larger flare-up in the region? Already, Hezbollah has announced that a new and escalating phase of its conflict with Israel.
These statements are one thing, but for all the Palestinians and the Lebanese, they are seeing how Israel is succeeding in attacking Hezbollah. Nasrallah, their leader was killed, and now their leaders are being assassinated. The Israelis moving into Lebanon. Most of the South Lebanon has been occupied by Israel. So the reality is very different from whatever statements, maybe belligerent statements, which may be coming from Hezbollah or from Hamas. But the people of Lebanon and people of Gaza hopefully will understand that this is a conflict which they cannot win, and it can only bring more misery, more death, more destruction to the people of Gaza and people of southern Lebanon. And it is in their best interest that with the help of the international community, they come to some kind of a compromise with Israel.
And what about the fate of the about 100 Israeli hostages still held by Hamas? Could that be affected in any way by Sinwar's killing?
About 100 are unaccounted for, but even the Israelis believe that maybe 50 might have already been, because they were all in tunnels, and with this massive bombardment by Israel of all the tunnels and the hospitals and everywhere. So it is natural if the civilians are dying, then the hostages might have also died in that process. But there cannot be any ceasefire or deal by Israel unless all the hostages are accounted for. That means 101 who are still not accounted for, either their bodies should be available or they should be handed over back to Israel. Without that, Israel will not agree. We all know Prime Minister Netanyahu is a very strong person, and he doesn't listen to any country, even to the United States. So without that, no deal would be possible.
So in your view, sir, at this stage, what are the likely endgame possibilities of the current conflict in West Asia?
The endgame, as far as Gaza is concerned, is possible if the Gazans or Hamas, they hand over the all the hostages, and the international community is able to prevail upon Israel that they do not ask for surrender of the remaining fighters of Hamas, or there should be some kind of amnesty for them. Because if they are arrested by by Israel, then they will be in jail for decades. So they will have no interest in accepting a ceasefire. So it is a complex diplomatic negotiation. But I would think that the Israeli Defense Forces, their assessment would be that in Gaza, their objective of degrading or almost destroying Hamas has been more or less achieved.
Indeed, a turning point in this conflict. Thank you very much, Ambassador S.R. Thayal, for being with us and shedding analysis on this valuable subject.